Fabled Heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The sterile, recycled air of the cabin tasted of plastic and stale perfume, a flavor that did nothing to calm the frantic hummingbird pulse in my throat. I have always hated flying. It is an unnatural surrender, a ceding of all control to hollow steel wings and the indifferent whims of the wind. 181 souls on board, the captain had announced earlier, his voice a tinny, cheerful crackle over the intercom that felt like a carefully constructed lie. Outside my small window, the world was an endless, unforgiving blue. Inside, I was drowning in it. My knuckles were bone-white where I gripped the worn fabric of the armrests, my breath catching on every minor shudder and groan of the fuselage. My stomach clenched with each dip, my mind painting vivid, catastrophic images behind my eyelids. Then, through a gap between the seats, I saw him. He was seated 3 rows ahead, an island of impossible stillness in the mundane sea of sleeping passengers and bored travelers staring at tiny screens. I would have bet my life he had not been there during boarding. I would have remembered. Dressed in a severe, exquisitely tailored black suit that seemed to absorb the cabin's flat lighting, his very presence felt like a void. His hair was the color of a starless night sky, thick and dark, falling over the collar of his jacket. When he turned his head just slightly, a fractional, elegant movement, I caught the glint of his eyes. They were not blue or brown or any human color I could name, but a startling, luminous silver like pools of liquid mercury reflecting a distant moon. He was not reading or sleeping or listening to music. He was simply watching, his posture relaxed but radiating a coiled energy, waiting with a patience that felt ancient, profound, and deeply unnerving. A sudden, violent jolt shook the plane, sending a collective gasp through the cabin and sloshing a passenger's drink across the aisle. The seatbelt sign flashed, a frantic red eye in the gloom. The cheerful captain was back, his voice now tight with a tension he could not quite hide. Unexpected turbulence, he called it. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage of bone. The plane bucked again, harder this time, and the lights flickered, plunging us into a half-second of absolute darkness. In that fleeting moment of black, I saw it. A faint, ethereal shimmer clung to the other passengers, a pale, ghostly aura of soft blue light around each one. The lights buzzed back to life, and the strange glow was gone. My mind screamed that it was a trick of the light, an artifact of fear, but I knew what I had seen. My gaze snapped back to the man in black. He was looking directly at me. His silver eyes met mine across the distance, and there was no warmth in them, only a flicker of something I could not name. Not just shock, but recognition, as if he was stunned that I, of all people, could truly see him. The floor dropped from beneath us. A terrible, grinding screech of tortured metal filled the air, punctuated by a chorus of human screams. We were falling. The world tilted into a sickening final dive, and amidst the raw chaos, a strange calm washed over me, a cold wave of inevitability. And then a touch. A hand covered mine on the armrest, not with the clammy grip of fear, but with a firm, possessive strength. It was his. Impossibly, he was beside me. The air around him shimmered, smelling of ozone and distant stars. His touch was not cold like I expected from a figure so spectral. It was a searing, electric heat that shot up my arm and burned straight into my soul, a terrifying and undeniable claim in the heart of the fall. The world outside the window was a blur of indifferent sky and rapidly approaching Earth, yet the chaos inside the cabin felt distant, muted. Time itself seemed to warp and unravel, stretching thin around the anchor of his touch. The screams of the other passengers faded into a dull, hollow echo, their terror becoming a watercolor painting left out in the rain. My entire universe, my entire consciousness, had contracted to the searing point of contact between his skin and mine. Heat of him was a brand, a focus in the storm of my dissolving reality. He leaned closer, his proximity a shield against the rising tide of panic that threatened to drown me. His scent filled my senses, something like ancient stone and cold night air, an impossible fragrance in the sterile cabin. His voice was not a shout to be heard over the pandemonium, but a low, resonant rumble that vibrated through my bones, cutting through the symphony of destruction. This flight always had a destination. My name, he spoke my name as if he had tasted it on his tongue for 1,000 years. A shiver that had nothing to do with fear traced its way down my spine. How could he know my name? A desperate, reflexive instinct made me try to pull my hand away, but his grip was unyielding, a manacle of warm, living steel. "Who are you?" I breathed, the question a fragile thread in the howling storm. His silver eyes held mine, and in their luminous depths I saw not malice, but a profound, weary sorrow that seemed as old as time itself. "I am the guide," he answered, his words cryptic and heavy with a meaning that settled deep in my soul. "I am here to ensure the passengers reach their final stop." His gaze drifted past me, a flicker of cosmic duty, and I forced myself to follow it. The woman across the aisle, who had been sobbing into her hands moments before, was now strangely translucent. Her form flickered, her edges blurring into the seat behind her, a faint, pulsing light emanating from her chest. All around us, the same impossible phenomenon was happening. The 180 other souls were becoming shades, their mortal terror giving way to a quiet, spectral confusion. They were already gone, their bodies just shells left behind in the fall. "No," I whispered, shaking my head in frantic denial. "This isn't real, it's a hallucination." "It is the only thing that is real right now," he countered, his tone leaving no room for argument. "But you are different." His focus returned to me, sharp and intense. "Your soul was not meant to be on this manifest. It burns too brightly. It refuses to fade." He looked at me then, truly looked at me, and the ancient sorrow in his eyes was at war with a dawning, dangerous curiosity. He was as thrown by my resilience as I was by his existence. A surge of primal defiance flooded my veins, a refusal to be extinguished. I would not become a ghost. I would not fade away into a quiet light. "I am not dying today," I snarled, my voice raw with a desperation that surprised me. A corner of his mouth curved in a humorless, devastating smile. "No," he agreed, his silver gaze burning with an intensity that stole my breath. "Perhaps you are not." The plane gave a final, bone-jarring shudder as the end rushed up to meet us. "There is one way for you to walk away from this," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was somehow more powerful than the roar of the wind. "One impossible path, but the price would be binding you to me, Alara, forever." "What price?" The words left my lips before I had time to think, a raw, desperate gasp. Forever. The word was both a death sentence and a promise of salvation. Forever with a terrifying, impossible stranger was infinitely better than the 2 seconds of oblivion that remained. His grip on my hand tightened, the heat intensifying until it felt like it was branding me not just on my skin, but on the very essence of my being. "To save your life, I must anchor it to something that cannot die," he explained, his silver eyes boring into mine, demanding my complete attention, my absolute understanding as the world tore itself apart around us. "I am a reaper. My title is a misnomer in your tongue. I do not take lives, I merely guide them when their time is complete. My existence is bound by rules more ancient than your mountains. To interfere to save one soul from its fated end requires a balancing of the scales. An exchange of cosmic weight." The cabin around us began to peel away like old parchment, the metal groaning as it was ripped apart by the sheer force of the fall. I could see the churning clouds, feel the whip of the wind. "You would be tethered to me," he continued, his voice steady amid the chaos. "A piece of your life force, your vibrant mortality, woven into my timeless essence. It would make me an anomaly, a reaper with a mortal anchor, a flaw in the grand design. And you?" His gaze softened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something akin to pity. "You would live, but you would never again be entirely of your world. You would see the shades of the departed, feel the cold touch of endings before they arrive, and be irrevocably bound to the entity responsible for guiding them." He was offering me a gilded prison to save me from an open grave. Before I could process the terrifying weight of his offer, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavy, thick with a palpable malevolence that was colder than any death, a chill that sank into my bones. A shadow detached itself from the buckling floor of the plane, coalescing into a formless, writhing mass of darkness, a thing of torn voids and silent screams. It had no eyes, but I felt its ravenous, parasitic hunger fixate on me. "What is that?" I gasped, my voice trembling. In a fluid, protective motion, he was on his feet, pulling me behind his larger frame. Tired demeanor had changed. The weary guide was gone, replaced by a formidable, celestial warrior. His name, I realized, must be Kale, the name I had seen on a manifest in a dream last night. "A carrion feeder," he snarled, his voice a low growl of pure loathing. "Drawn to the disruption, to a soul that burns too bright and refuses its fate. It thinks you are an easy meal." The shadow lunged, not with physical speed, but with a terrifying surge of energy that made my teeth ache and my vision swim. Kale threw out his free hand, and a wall of incandescent silver light erupted from his palm, slamming into the creature and throwing it back with a soundless concussion. The fight was violent and silent, a war of pure will and energy. The shadow lashed out again and again, its tendrils of nothingness seeking to devour the light. Each time Kale repelled it, the silver light from his hand seemed to flicker and dim. He was weakening, pouring his essence into protecting me. The creature sensed it. It coiled its shifting form, gathering its power, and lunged not at Kale but directly at me. Kale spun, his body a shield, but the effort cost him. He staggered, a pained grunt escaping his lips as a shadowy tendril grazed his arm, leaving a smoking black tear in his jacket. "It is too strong here in the heart of this much death," he gritted out, his silver eyes locking with mine, filled with a desperate, burning urgency. Your choice, Alara, make your choice now, or we will both be consumed. Yes, the word was torn from my throat, a scream of survival, of defiance, of absolute faith in the terrifying stranger who was my only hope. I choose you, I choose life. With my final ounce of strength, I lunged forward, grabbing his outstretched hand with both of mine, sealing the pact. The moment our skin met in that shared choice, the world dissolved. It was not a gentle fading, but a violent, concussive blast of pure, blinding white light that erupted from our joined hands. It felt like a star being born between us, its raw power a physical force that seared away the wreckage, the screams, the terrifying sensation of the fall. The shadowy creature dissolved into motes of dust, its malevolent hunger annihilated by the raw, untamed energy of a cosmic rule being deliberately broken. The sickening lurch of gravity ceased. When the light receded, its intensity softening to a gentle glow, we were no longer in the shattered husk of an airplane. We stood on a vast, quiet plain of smooth, gray stone under a twilight sky streaked with colors I had never seen, hues of deep violet and molten gold. The air was still and cool, carrying the scent of rain on dust. It was utterly silent, save for the soft, whispering breeze that felt like the world taking its first deep breath. Before us, in a peaceful, orderly line that stretched into the violet haze, stood the other 180 souls. They were whole and calm now, their spectral forms glowing with a gentle inner light. Their journey was over. They were waiting peacefully for their guide. Kale released my hand, though a tingling, vibrant warmth remained, a phantom echo of the power we had unleashed. He looked changed. The weary weight in his ancient eyes was still there, a burden I was only beginning to understand, but it was joined by a profound awe as he stared not at the souls, but at me. "It is done," he murmured, his voice laced with a disbelief that mirrored my own. The bond between us was no longer just a physical touch. It was a tangible thread in the air, a low hum of energy that I could feel in the marrow of my bones. I could sense him now. I could feel the crushing weight of his duty, the eons of loneliness, and now a flicker of something new, a fierce, protective curiosity focused entirely on me. And he, I sensed, could feel the frantic, fragile, fiercely burning spark of my own life. I was alive. I could feel the solid ground beneath my feet, the steady, rhythmic beat of my own heart, but something was irrevocably altered. The world felt thinner, the veil lifted. I could not only see the shimmering edges of the souls before us, I could feel their quiet acceptance, their fading attachments to the world they had left. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper in the profound stillness. "The threshold," he replied, his silver gaze finally turning from the waiting souls back to me. "A place of transit. They will move on, but you and I, we have created something new, a paradox." He took a step closer, his expression unreadable, a mask of control over a torrent of new sensations. "You are alive, Alara, but you paid the price. Your soul is now bound to mine. You are my anchor to the mortal plane, and I am your gate to a world you were never meant to see." He offered his hand to me again, palm up. It was not a demand this time, but a clear, silent invitation, a promise. "This is your new beginning," he said, and for the first time a true, faint smile touched his lips, transforming his severe face into something devastatingly beautiful. "Our new beginning."